Alright, we are back today working on the DOKA, and it's gonna be pretty hot today, so trying to get as much done in kind of as short a time as possible before it gets too hot. So first off, I swapped the straight fittings for 90-degree fittings here. These are 3/8 NPT to 1/2-inch hose barb. That'll let us get the inverter back up against this wall without too much issue, and it shouldn't be too big of a deal getting in and out with the hoses attached. So we need to drill some isolation mounts. We got some isolators for that, so we need to drill some new holes that match up with the inverter. And the other main project today is to get these cables dressed up. I got some things for that, and maybe even get the second battery box in and start loading some cells into that. So yeah, let's get to it. Alright, so we have the PM100 mounted. We have some isolators. These are 3/8 inch studs, so we need to get some nuts for those. But they're bolted into the frame rails down here, and that should give us plenty of room. Nice routing for the phase wires, and then plenty of room up front for more connections up there. And if we really need to, we can drill another set of holes and just shift it back a little bit further. And then there's plenty of room down the back there. It's actually really hard to see. So yeah. So the next thing to do is we're gonna dress up those wires underneath the box. All right. So spent a little bit of time, got some heat shrink on those lugs, and got the grommets in place. And that and then I also got these little bungee cords. I think that's gonna help keep these cables up off the rails and keep them kind of floating. So yeah, you can see where those go through the bulkhead there. So the next thing is I gotta finish dressing these cables, getting the rest of the grommets in place and the heat shrink on, and then I should be able to load the second box. Alright, so we have all the cables in this tunnel dressed now. We got heat shrink on the ends, and we got grommets in all four. So remember, those go up to the front pack, go through that quarter of the pack. This wire will go through the quarter of the pack that goes here, and then those two go out to the back. So the next thing to do is to drop the box in and start loading cells. so we have the rest of the batteries in. It was a little tight. These large format prismatic cells, because of the way, like these ridges, they have ridges on kind of all sides. They're meant to be strapped together and then kind of strapped into place, but sliding them into a box that is the exact right width and length in each dimension is kind of a pain. And the other part is that the first row back there is really hard to get to, so I already, I got the connections on there, and then I just need to add the connections for the rest of these. So I've seen worse, but the other thing that I did was I went through and I did a voltage check on all these, so they're all sitting about the same voltage, and I had to swap one out. There's a few laying around here, so I swapped them out so that they're all the same, and then I went through and I brushed the terminals down with some fine sandpaper just to get any oxidation off before we bolt the bus bars on. So I gotta go find some bus bars and we'll bust this all together. Alright, so I think that's where I'm gonna end today. I couldn't find any more of the jumper bus bars, so we're gonna have to scrounge some more of those up. But that all looks good in there, and the rest of the jumpers are easy to get to, so shouldn't be too big of a deal. I think the next thing is probably starting on the wiring harness for the inverter and the motor and the feedback and throttle and all that. Luckily, I just worked on a project with a PM150, and so I've got kind of that mindset going. So should be able to knock one of those out pretty quickly and design it up in rapid harness and get a printout so that the final customer can have a documentation trail of where everything goes for troubleshooting. So I think that's where I'm going to call it today. It's pretty hot, and I'm going to go get some lunch and cool off. So until next time, later. Alright, one last thing before I head out. Check out the cables. So I think, there's no tightness on that cable. That one's got plenty of slack. Those other two are, they're not rubbing on anything. They're not sitting on anything. And when you push it back in, it's not sitting on the track down there. They're kind of just sitting in between the two boxes. So pretty pleased with how that works out. That should make servicing pretty easy in the future.